Welcome to today's tutorial. Today I want to show you how to make a really straightforward, simple, long dress. It could be to the knee, it could be longer, it's your choice. But the good thing about this dress is that it's great for beginners. I'm using this fabric. It's actually a sarong that I bought when I was in Cape Verde, and it has a beautiful print on it. Let me show you. It's got these ladies. So nice. And I really want to make a nice dress that's going to cover my shoulders because luckily enough I'm going to Cambodia and I want to visit Angkor Wat, where you do have to cover your shoulders and dress really moderately. So I'm hoping this is going to keep me cool and covered at the same time. You're also going to need some thread. Try and get the colour exact as possible because we may need to do some hemming around the neck. I'm going to try and get away with using my magical hem tape. This you can pick up in the pound shop and it just irons on really nice and neatly. So I'm hoping we can get away with that, but we may need to just go over it with a simple seam stitch. And you're going to need pins and of course your scissors and measuring tape. First things first, best thing to do is check my video on how to measure yourself and then how to work out how much fabric you need. With this type of fabric, because the motif is at the bottom and I'm literally just going to double this over like this, I'm only really going to need the amount of fabric to cover my width because the length will just come out long ways like that. And so I'm going to have it all plain at the top with the motifs at the bottom. Now check over your fabric because this one does actually have some sort of stain here and I don't know if that's going to wash off. It doesn't look like it is, so I'm going to try and need to cut that out completely. I'm hoping I can because it should go down the middle here and hopefully drop to the side. And also check your motif because if the widest point you need this fabric to be is say about 22 inches and you measure from this print to this print, that gives me 22 and that is going to be the bottom of my dress. However, it will be too close to use this motif because I'm going to need 22 inches, which will mean that I'm going to have a little bit of this print in it, and having part of a print is not really what I'm going to go for. So I'm going to miss one and then still hope to get 22 inches from this side one here. So let's see if that works. The nice thing about this fabric is that it's got these little beads on the end, so I'm going to try and keep these in, maybe have a slit on the side and just have them hanging off. Plus it will save me doing the hemming on that side, so it's a good trick. I'm going to measure across 22 inches off the top and the bottom of the fabric, and I'm just going to pin that in place. That will be my guide for cutting down this side. And be careful that your fabric doesn't pull in any way, so that when you cut, you're actually cutting straight. I'm going to do 2 more markers so that I don't cut wonky. And that should do it. Now all you have to do is follow your pins and make an imaginary line down here, and that is where you're going to cut. So don't be nervous at this point. As long as these pins are in the right place, you've got a good guide. Now just keep a steady hand and cut straight, and then move your scissors forward to where you finished so that you're just cutting straight again. This way you should get the straightest line possible. So keep your focus. That pin is a bit wonky, it's not helpful. So that's the front done. Now we need to do the same for the back. And as you can see, now it's gonna look like this. Maybe I could even have these beads hanging on my arm as well, so that could look nice. But on the other side, unfortunately, the beads aren't going to be there. They stop here on the print, and I'm going to have to cut along here, so I won't have beads on the other side. So I don't know how that will look. The aim now is to cut the center motif. Find the center of your print. Here it's about here, and make sure you cut evenly on either side. Once you've cut the front and the back, just really check your fabric again. Work out what you would like at the front and what you would like at the back. Now, like I was saying, I have this damaged bit here, so I'm going to keep this as the back of my dress, and I've got this one which is nice and clean at the top, so I can keep that as my front. So let's lay these over together, facing each other like this. We want to half this again because now it's time to cut our neckline. And I just want to have a really nice slash neck on this dress so that I'm really protected from the sun as well. I don't want it to be deep or anything. So lie your fabric down really carefully and just fold over the extra. I want a slash neck, but the thing about a slash neck is you want to be able to get your head in it. I'm not going to have any zips or anything like that on this dress, so I'm going to measure my head. I need it to be able to get over my head comfortably, and my head is 22 inches. So whatever I cut here and the depth and everything needs to open up to 22 inches. So let's figure that out and then start cutting. So to make this slash neck, I think I'll have it about 10 inches wide here across my neck, which means that's already 20, and I just need to get 2 more inches on it so that it fit over my head nicely. So I can make it, say, 2 inches deep at the front and 1 inch deep at the back. And to half the 10 inches, I'm going to have it 5 inches across. Do make all these measurements before you go to cut, but if you're sort of my kind of size, then you might be able to use the same measurements. To begin with, I'm going to cut the back and the front the same, so I'm going to cut on 1 inch. So 1 inch deep. I'm going to put a little nip here, and then I want the neck 5 inches. Now, if we cut at 5 here, it's actually going to get a little bit bigger by the time we put our seam in. So we're actually going to cut at 4.5. So let's take this all the way to here. I'm keeping mine nice and straight. I'm not doing any curve or anything like that. Now we can open out our fabric, and remember this is the back, so I'm just going to take the front only, and I'm going to make it slightly deeper. It's still in place as it was, and at the moment this was cut at 1 inch, so I'm just going to cut 1 more inch deeper, otherwise it's going to be right here and it's not going to be comfortable. So let's just cut this. And again, I'm going to take it very straight to the same finish point. We've cut our neckline both on the front and the back, and to hem this we're actually going to need to cut some of our extra fabric, and we're just going to use it as binding tape just to hem it inwards. What I'm going to use is this length of it, the plain part, and I don't need it to be that wide, so I'm just going to cut these off. Just going to make sure I don't get any of the colour because it will show through. There. And that can be used to hem the neckline. So you want to have that placed over, right sides facing. As long as that covers your neckline like this, you'll be able to hem that quite nicely. So let's practice using this hemming tape. It's quite easy. We're just going to take our fabric. We want to place it along the edge like this. And then we just need to turn this up. Now we can turn it up half, or you can turn it up completely like that. I'm just going to turn it up half because we don't need it to be that thick. Once you have this in place, just put a little bit of the iron on it because it will start to melt, and that will secure where you want to put it. Just apply a little bit of heat like that to begin with, and the hemming tape will start to stick. And just do it for the whole length like this. You need to be super careful when you're doing this, because if you have long nails or anything, the iron's very hot, so be very careful. You can see that's coming along quite nicely. And just to the edge. Careful you don't get it on your iron because that will get messy. Once you've put in your hemming tape once, you might want to do this again, just so that you don't have this fraying fabric, and you can just do exactly the same thing. Place your hemming tape on the edge and fold over like you did before, and just apply the heat. In the same way, we want to finish all of this. Next, we want to hem the side slits. Now, I don't want them to be too long, so the dress is going to be about 42 inches long, and about 12 inches will be enough for the slits. So I'm going to do it here, and then I'll have some for hemming at the bottom as well. And just to make sure you don't go over, it's best to actually cut your tape. So I'm cutting it. We want to fold this over, and I'm just going to go halfway, give that some heat so that starts to stick. And again. Now, because these are slits and the leg is going to keep whipping it as you're walking, I do recommend that you put a stitch on top of this. This is going to give you a nice, clean, even seam here to follow. So once you've done that once, you can take this to the sewing machine and you can sew down that stitch. That's one of the slits completed here. See, that looks quite nice and neat. And so when we do go to sew that, that'll be nice and easy. We're just going to take that in and we're going to put in the seam. So just like we've hemmed this side, let's hem the other side. Take the piece that you're using as your lining and half this, because we're going to use half on the front neck and half on the back. Place this on your dress, right side facing right side like this, and pin this in place. And then when you turn this over, that should be nice and even, and you can put in your hemline now. So sew these two together, just along there. Take your fabric, make sure everything is level. I've pinned this in so I know that I can't get confused and make it lopsided. I'm bringing my needle right to the edge and just secure that down. I'm going to start with a double stitch. So that secures everything and that won't come out now. And I'm just going to follow the neckline really slowly. I'm not going to let the sewing machine pull my fabric. I'm just going to hold it completely level. You can slow the sewing machine down if you have that function, if it helps. And just slowly use the edge of your neckline like this, just to guide you so that your seam is even. That's all we're doing, is following what we've already cut. And let's see how we've done. That looks quite nice and neat. You can remove the pins. Now you can cut away the extra fabric. The next thing to do to make sure this is nice and neat is every time you see your seam curved, you just put in a little nip. Like straight up to here, and you put in a little nip. This will make sure when we turn it the right way round, there won't be any bumps in it. Slash net will be nice and neat. I think that should do it. And now we can pull that straight. Not quite. I think I need one more nip. Just here in the centre. That's better. Now that seam can be pulled straight, you know that this should be quite neat when we turn it over. It's a good idea to put in a understitch and just iron it at this point. And that is our neckline. So we want to do exactly the same for the back, and then we can put in the understitch. To do the understitch, we want to make a really nice close seam to the neckline like this. Hold all of your layers apart from your front piece to the right hand side, so that your lining and all your seams are here on the right hand side. And put this right to the edge, making sure the seam line is on the right hand side. And then what you want to do is just pull away with your hands and sew really slowly. So let's try that. Don't need to pull it forward, just pull it to the sides, making sure all of your fabric is right, and that will just make sure that the lining stays on the inside. And just double it at the end, make sure that doesn't come undone. When you turn this the right way like this, you can see that you've got a more secure seam and the lining is looking quite neat and it's staying on the inside. We've done the neckline, and you can see I've just given it a quick iron down because it helps when you're putting them together and sewing them. And the iron finish that you can get at this point is so much nicer because the material is actually flat. Put together your two shoulder seams like this and just check that they're the right distance. They look like they're matching up quite nicely here. So we can now put in the shoulder seam. So on this side, I want to put in the shoulder seam, and then afterward I'll hem the side. But on the side where I've got the tassels, I'm going to hem the back shoulder first, and then I'll put in this shoulder seam here. Now you might not have the same issue as me because you might not have these beads in the way. So to start with, let's put in these shoulder seams. Take your dress, match up the neckline really nicely and put this right under your needle so it doesn't move when you start to sew. Start with the double stitch so it doesn't undo. Hold the shoulder edges together and give yourself a little slant because this is going to shape your shoulder here, and this all really depends on person to person how slopey you are. My slant is about an inch difference, so I'm just going to do a diagonal seam and then close the edge with a double seam. And here's my neck, and that's come out so nice. I'm impressed with that. And that's the shoulder on one side, and now the shoulder with the beads, and this is where I need to hem in the back shoulder because on the front there's no hemming to do because of these beads. So again, just bring your neckline together, put them right under the needle to secure that in place. You don't want this to move. And I'm only going to sew part way so I can actually hem the shoulder. And when I turn that the right way, oh wow, they've both come out really nice. So that's probably a first for me. It's not easy getting these level. So now that the shoulders are together, the dress is ready at the neck, and we can throw this over our head now to test if we can actually get our head in it. So let's see what happens. Oh, not bad. It's got a nice slash neck, just like I wanted. Just like before, take your hemming tape, place it on the edge where your armhole is, turn this in like we did before, and then just with some heat let this stick. And again with the armhole, I'm going to turn this in halfway, and then I'm going to put on a top stitch to help it stay, because it's at one of those places where it's going to keep getting rubbed and the hemming tape can open. So that's the back of the dress. Do the same with the front of the dress here of the armhole, and then we can put in our side seams. We've ironed in our shoulders and the armhole halfway, and now what we want to do is sew down the armhole so that stays put. And as you can see, this is looking really nice and neat at the shoulder and at the neckline and at the other shoulder as well. And then we're going to put in our shoulder line completely on this side as well, and we'll join our edges. Take your armhole and fold this over so that we no longer see our threads hanging off. We don't want to see that at all. And now, because this seam is going to be visible from the top, you want to make this nice and even, really nice edge, and that will sew into the side seam. Secure it with your needle. Take your time. Again, slow down the sewing machine if it is too fast for you. Start with a double edge. And whatever you're using as a guide, whether you use the left foot of the sewing machine or the right, just keep it absolutely straight. Really be careful here, because this is what makes the garment nice and neat and professional looking. Feel where your hemming tape finishes. Take your seam right to there and finish it with a double edge. and cut this really nice and neatly, like that. And now we have our armhole sewn down, looking quite neat, so that's not too bad. We want to do that to the other side as well. Just take your half hemmed shoulder, turn this in, match it up to what you've got here already, and adjust it if you need to. Finish with a double edge, and we can secure the shoulder completely now. This is where our beads are, so we had left this open earlier. Hold them together and sew right to the edge. And remember, the shoulder is slopey, so when you're continuing the shoulder seam, make sure you try and keep that momentum going. There we go. That's the shoulders done. Cut all your threads nice and right to the edge so they don't show from the front of your garment. That's looking really nice at the neck and the armhole. So now we can sew down the sides of our dress. And you're going to notice I'm actually sewing this the wrong way. I'm using the wrong sides together and I'm sewing down the edge. Do this as close to the edge as possible and it will all become apparent why. I've done the top stitches on all of the splits and just on the bottom of the dress as well, because it was a selvage edge and it wouldn't look nice if I kept that in. And I've done this funny seam here to the wrong sides of the dress together. And the reason being is when we turn this out and we put in the seam like we would normally, then the dress would be nice on the outside. Not only that, there's no fraying on the inside. So this fabric really frays, so it's quite important to do this. I don't always do this, but look at this. So before I do go to put in that second seam, I'm going to trim away all of these because we don't want these getting caught in the seam. Let's put in the actual seam now. Take the fabric now from the armhole. We're going to match up these edges and put in the seam where you normally have your armhole. So for me, that's like 9. But because this dress doesn't really have a shape, it can even be 10 because it can be quite nice and baggy here. We're going to take the seam all the way down to the splits. So where this fabric is going to turn over and where the split is nice. So put in this seam all the way down, being very careful to bring this to the edge. It probably helps to iron this down at this point, because then when you want to get the edge, you can get it much nicer. And don't forget, we want to make the seam bigger than the one that's on the inside. This is the seam that I've just put in from the armhole to the slit, like that. And it just goes right to the slit. And so when we turn this the right way round, that has come out really well. There's no frayed parts. Oh look, here's one. So when you get these frayed bits, just cut them right to the tip. Can't remember what they call this. You kind of, it's either called like a bag seam or a French seam, where this is the outer seam and this is the inner seam. This is definitely an optional step. You don't have to do this if your fabric is staying, you're learning, and you just want this to be nice and easy. You can miss this step out altogether. But if you can put it in, if you do need it, it does make your garment really nice. You can wear that as many times as you want. It's not going to fray. Yeah, and I think you'll be happy with the result. So let's put in this last seam and our dress will be ready. As for the other side, I have to make a decision about what I'm going to do about these beads. I thought I would cut them off, but I think I'm just going to leave them all the way down. So I'm just going to put some hem tape on this side to stop this from fraying, and then I'm going to sew the seam over and have this underneath so they just hang over like that. So let's start by using the hem tape on this, and then I'll show you the seam I'm going to do. Now that I've used the hem tape on one side of the dress and I've got beads on the other side of the dress, we can actually sew them. And what I'm going to do is just place the fabric on top like this, so that the seam will actually be visible here, but the drops will just look like that. So I think that will give it quite a nice finish. I'm actually going to start from the slits here, and I'm just placing one side over the other like that, and I'm going to put this straight under the needle. That way I've secured it and I know exactly where I'm starting, and these two slits should be level. So yeah, that looks good. And now, making sure there's no fabric underneath, I'm just sewing the beads on top of the other slit. And now I think you can see that the beads are hanging over. Just like that, we have a dress, a nice one for the hot weather. Nice little bit of beads hanging here, give it some prettiness. And yeah, I'm hoping I'm going to get into Angkor Wat wearing this. If I'm successful, you'll see me in one of the videos, or maybe as a thumbnail. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial making this dress. It is nice and easy. I hope I have explained the steps really well. If there's anything that you're not sure of, please leave me a comment and I will definitely get back to you. So they loved my dress in Angkor Wat. I got in. I hope you like the way it looks. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and don't forget to like, subscribe and share with all your friends.